Welcome to No Code Hero. In this video, I will show you how to use JavaScript in AppGyver to read any JSON tags and pass them into a variable. On the right side, I have an app running. It has a title, a description, little cards displaying reviews, and at the bottom there is a button to refresh the JSON. The data is being read from the flow function. So let's navigate to page layout, and in page layout, if we open the logic container, you will see that I have written a little JavaScript flow function, and this will be executed when the page is new focused or if the event refresh, which I set up myself, is being triggered. So the JavaScript flow function at this point has two different outputs. It has one output to set the page variable, pass JSON, and it has a second output to, for example, in the error case, to just display the error. So let's take a look at the input of the parsed JSON. We double click on it. Then you will see that this is the code. And on the left side, I have input 1. And input 1 is exactly the text what I just copy pasted from the other page. So this is what I just copy pasted. Copy and then paste inside this one here. And input will be set. Well, inside inputs, that's an object, is one key called input1, and the value is our JSON text. It's just a string. It's nothing like, it's not the parsed object, it's just a string. And what I do is I say, okay, so execute this function, and I have a try and catch block. So the try will be executed first, and if some kind of error occurs, then the catch block is being executed, taking the error and then returning an error object. So here we have a usual case in using the JSON function, parse, taking some text, in this case inputs.input1, because we set our input to be here, and then once we are done, we put it in a JSON variable and return an object JSON as a key, and the value is the JSON object what we parsed. And in error case, we will return an error object called error with three different keys: code, message, and raw error. And to understand why here the return statement is a bit different, you can set up the output nodes here. In this case, I have two. The first one here in the success case and the second one in the error case. So if I just return an object, it will always default to the first output with the index 0. If I want to return the output in a second node, I need to return an array with the index, in this case 1, because the first output has the index 0 and the second output has the index 1. So we put the 1 to indicate that we want to output this data in the second output node, and then we give as a second value in the array the object itself, in this case error. And I also spec the error object here, saying, okay, error is an object. It has a key code, which is a text. It has a key message, which is a text, and it has a key raw error, which could be any value. So I'm not sure. It should be actually an object, but at this point, I just put any value. Okay, and that's it. That's how you use a custom JavaScript function. You can increase the number of outputs as much as you like. Just remember to return with the correct index first. And you can use almost any JavaScript function. So this JavaScript function will be executed in a little sandbox, and it's similar to a Lambda function because it's like an anonymous function. For this function, all the inputs and outputs is what's necessary. All right, so here you have your little function, and we set the input to be a constant string. For example, if we want to change something, we can change it here, and every time this page is focused, then the data will be read. As a little bonus, I put also a refresh button to refresh this page over and over again. Well, actually to refresh the variable over and over again. For example, if this string changes and we want to refresh it again, or to see if an error occurs, then we can hit the refresh button, and it works like that. So let's focus the refresh button here on the left. Look at the function. So once I tap this button, then I will trigger an event. And this event is the refresh from empty page. So you need to first set up the event, and then you have to set up the trigger, because without an event you cannot choose the right trigger event. So if we go to page layout, and you have to drag and drop the receive event flow function, give it a name, and then set the event source to fired from trigger event. Once you have done that, connect those two, and then connect the component tab with the trigger refresh. And that's it. So for example, we have an invalid JSON. Let's put an invalid JSON. Like here, we have to go to the input of parse JSON. So let's say I forget something here. Let's just erase the first character. So this will be an invalid JSON. Let's save it. So what happens now is the second output will be triggered from parse JSON. And the second output will display this error as a dialog, like here. So I can redo that, you will see. Or we can put the valid JSON in and change the data. Okay, let's say maybe it was not 1997, it was 1998. Okay, let's save it. And there we go. So this is a quick way to just have a way to take some JSON and put it into an AppGyver application. But one downside here is that we have not spec'd the data. So what we cannot do is, for example, let's copy this one. And I want to go, instead of formula, I want to go to data and variables, to page variable. I know, okay, it's a parse JSON. Yeah, it's inside, my data is inside this object, but AppGyver has no idea about how this object looks like. Because I just specified it's any object. It's just object. It has key values, and I have no idea what key values actually there inside from the AppGyver perspective. One workaround here is to spec it yourself. For example, go to the variable and then say, okay, we have one property called title, another one called description, and there's also reviews, but I will skip that. So once we spec our data here, our object, then we can go, and instead of using the formula, we could go straight to data and variables, to parse JSON, and choose title, for example. Thank you for watching. Feel free to thumb up if you like this video and subscribe if you're new to this channel. Cheers!